So let's now apply the same principles of stock valuation, but to a situation in which you have abnormal growth rates. In other words, you can assume constant growth in dividends, but actually you have different points, different growth rates for different periods of time. So the first question is constant growth assumptions, are they realistic? And the answer, of course, is that not necessarily all the time, right? We can use them to simplify our calculations, but sometimes we do need to accommodate different rates of growth. So we start with the same example, the same exercise that we saw previously, this one right here, okay? And now ask the same question: what is the price at the end of 2013? But if now the assumption is that dividends are expected to grow for the next 3 years, let me at 10%, and then at 4% afterwards. So what is it that's really, how to visualize this, right? So we have now a situation where this is 2013, right? Okay. Time zero is 2013, right? The price in 2013. And we're assuming that for the next 3 years, G is going to be 10%. So we could call this G1. And after year 3, the growth rate, let's call this G sub 2, will be at 4%. So notice that we can only assume constant growth after year 3. We cannot assume constant growth during the first 3 years because it's not constant. It's going to change. So if you want to apply the constant growth model, you could only do so after year 3. So this is the way the approach will take, right? This is the path. You would first say, all right, what is the price of anything? And we agree that the price of anything is basically the present value of all the benefits that you expect to receive from that something, right? From that asset, from that investment. So what are the benefits that I would expect to receive from this company, from being an owner of this company? Well, I would expect to receive my dividend payments. Dividend payment in year 1, dividend payment in year 2, dividend payment in year 3, and so on and so forth, right? Now, it so happens that I would have to discount each of these dividends using my opportunity cost of capital, and that will be a very tedious process because there's a lot of dividends, right? As long as the company is assumed that will exist, we will have dividends. So there are theoretically an infinite number of dividends that we would expect to discount. So the way we can handle these things is to say, okay, I know that I'm going to have to discount dividend in year 1, 2, and 3, but do I really need to continue to make estimates on dividends 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth? And the answer is no. You know that after year 3, growth rate is constant. So you can assume, here we are, that after year 3, you can apply the constant growth model because after year 3, growth is constant. So that will be our shortcut. In other words, I know that P sub 3 is going to be the present value, right? The price at the end of year 3 is just the present value of what? Why is the stock valuable at the end of year 3? The stock is valuable because it offers payments. So the present value at the end of year 3 is the present value of payments that are expected to come after year 3, which are what? Dividends 4, 5, 6, and 7, and so on. So P sub 3 is really the present value of all dividends after year 3. So I can make this calculation, the answering the question of how much is this worth today in the year 2013, a much easier process, less tedious. All I would have to do is find D1, D2, D3, and then instead of having to find for D4, D5, D6, and so on, all I need to do is just find P sub 3, because P sub 3 is the present value of all dividends after year 3. So it's already capturing everything there. So I will have to discount really are just D1, D2, D3, and the price at the end of year 3, which will be the price at the end of 2016. Okay. So let's get to it. Let's find D1, D2, and D3. Since I know that my last dividend in 2013 was that $1.89, how do I know that? That comes from the previous problem, right? Notice the $1.89. If it's not clear, and there's a lot of coloring here, so let me just make it clear. Here it is, right? Okay. All right. So we start with d sub 0, $1.89. What is d sub 1? Well, during the first 3 years, dividends grow at 10%. So d sub 1 is going to be d sub 0 multiplied times 1 plus the growth rate. 1 plus 0.10% is 1.10, right? 1.1. That gives me $2.79, $2.079. The dividend year 2 can also be obtained in the same way, right? There's two really ways of doing that. You can just say, oh, the dividend year 2 is just the dividend year 0, growing at 10% for 2 years. That will give you $2.28. Or you can say, well, dividend year 2 is the same thing as it will be the dividend year 1, growing 1 more year at 10%. Okay, so there's really 2 ways of getting the same number, whatever makes you feel more comfortable. The point is that the dividend year 2 will be $2.28. What is the dividend year 3 going to be? Dividend year 3 is going to be the dividend year 2 growing at 10% one more time. Remember, the first 3 years dividends grow at 10%. That gives you $2.51. Okay? Or you can say that dividend year 3 is just d sub 0 growing for 3 consecutive periods, right, at 10%. So now you have D1, D2, and D3. So if you think about the price of a stock, the price today, remember today for us is 2013, right? It's just taking D1 and discounting it at our discount rate. Now, what is our discount rate? Remember from the previous problem that our discount rate was 8.5%, right? In decimal form would be like this, right? So taking d sub 1, finding the present value of d sub 1 in 2013, taking d sub 2, discounting that 2 years back to 2013, and the same thing for dividend sub 3. Okay? I hope that's clear, right? So we're just taking, we know we're going to receive D1, D2, and D3. We discount them back to year 0, year 2013, and that's a portion of the value of that stock. But that's not the only part. And let me clean this up a bit. Here we are. The other part of this is, okay, but I'm not only going to receive dividends 1, 2, and 3. I'm also going to receive dividends 4, 5, and 6, and all, and forever, right? So what is the representation of all those dividends? Well, we can find the price at year 3, P sub 3. And that's what this does. And let me change the color to blue so that we can see the difference, okay? This is what we're after now. This is P sub 3. P sub 3 is the present value of all dividends after year 3. And because we are assuming constant growth, because after year 3, growth is going to be at 4% forever, constant, then I will apply the constant growth model, which just says, give me D4 and discount that at RE minus G as your discount rate minus the growth rate. And that will give you the price at the end of year 3, which is the present value of all expected payments. So we already know 8.5% as the opportunity cost of capital. We know that the G is 4%. What we don't know is D sub 4. The dividend year 4 it's nothing more than dividend year 3, right? But growing at what rate? Be careful now. There's always an inertia that says, oh, since we've been making all these first 3 dividends grow at 10%, then D sub 4 is just going to be D sub 3 growing at 10% one more time. But careful, after year 3, growth is constant and is equal to, not 10, but 4%. So D sub 4 is just going to be the dividend in year sub 3 growing at 4%. That's how we get D sub 4. So now that we have D sub 4, we can plug that in the equation and get P sub 3. And P sub 3 is going to be discounted 3 years back to 0. And that's what this does. Now, those of you who are mathematically inclined can say, well, can't we just put these two together? So can I just add D3 and P3 in the numerator and discount both together at 1 plus RE raised to the third power, right? And the answer is yes, you can, of course, because they're both standing really in the same year. Both can be added. They're both apples, right? Both can be added and discounted at RE for 3 years. I'm just separating those two so that you can see that value from the stock, value that what something is worth, is a function of all the payments that you expect to receive. And you expect to receive not only these 3, but you also expect to receive a value from holding that stock that is reflected in piece of 3. If this doesn't make too much sense, think of the following. If you were to sell the stock at the end of year 3, what would you receive? Well, by the end of year 3, and let me rewrite it here. Okay. This is 2013, remember? So you would have received D sub 1, D sub 2, and you would have also received D sub 3. Okay? So for you, this stock is worth what? The present value of D1, of D2, of D3. And if you were to sell that stock at the end of year 3, think of it that way. If you were to sell that stock at the end of year 3, what would be the price that you would get for it? Well, the price would be P sub 3, right? That's what this is worth. So you would also receive P sub 3. Okay? So really, the stock is worth what you expect to receive, which are these 4 components. Okay? So I'm going to discount these 4 components. That's what I'm doing here. And when I crunch the numbers, when I put these numbers into the formula, you end up with $51.34. So how much is this stock worth to you today? It's worth $51.34. These $51, that's the present value of all expected payments.